Some local hospitals are asking visitors to stay away if they have flu-like symptoms. While all hospitals are asking those with symptoms to refrain from visiting loved ones, Citizens Memorial in Bolivar has set new policy regarding the matter. They are restricting children under 14, anyone with flu-like symptoms, and anyone exposed to someone with symptoms from the hospital. The restrictions are step 2 of the hospital's pandemic plan. Other area hospitals have not yet made official restrictions but are considering it.
Coming up, our Katie Reed sits down with Missouri State University President Dr. Michael Nietzel. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Ozarks News Journal. I'm Katie Reed. Today's up-close interview is with Missouri State University's President, Dr. Michael T. Nietzel. Dr. Nietzel, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Okay, my first question for you is, with our university mission is public affairs, the show Ozarks News Journal is based on that mission. How can you ensure that our student reporters are exemplifying that mission? What advice would you give them?
Well, the public affairs mission has gone through a number of refinements since we got it back in 1995, and currently there are 3 components to it that we want to emphasize: community engagement, ethical leadership, and cultural competence. So it seems to me a show like this is a prime opportunity for students to really address each of those. The fact that you're doing a show like this obviously shows a commitment to community engagement. Students, I assume, are responsible for most of what is put together here, and so you're being put into leadership roles that probably will equip you well for what you're thinking about doing in the future. And then I would hope that your selection of guests, either by virtue of who you select or the topics they address, somehow do get into the topic of cultural competence, which is really the ability to learn how to work with people who are different than you are.
Absolutely. So how successful do you feel has the entire student body been at promoting and accepting this mission?
I think we've gotten good buy-in from students. I think that as we've tried to be more specific about these 3 themes, students have come to understand it better and also recognize what we're trying to accomplish. These are not abstract themes merely. They're ones that really do equip you well for jobs in the future and for being outstanding citizens. This past week I was in Waynesville and Rolla and Fort Leonard Wood, and talked with the commanding general at Fort Leonard Wood, talked with the school superintendent, talked with some alumni. And in each of those meetings, what struck me was how practical these particular themes are. And so when you ask the general, what do you need? It's how to equip our soldiers better to understand the world and deal with people who are different than we are. When you talk to this school superintendent, she said, the number one thing that student teachers need to learn in my district is how to address effectively the issue of student diversity. And both of them talked about leadership as a primary component of what they hope a good higher education provides to graduates.
Okay, great. Well, as this mission as develops more for our university, what needs to happen for it to be a success for the entire student body?
Well, we're trying to introduce some components to it that I hope students participate in fully. One, in terms of community engagement, obviously, is the whole area of volunteering and service learning. And Missouri State has been an institution that's been seen over the years as being at the top of the charts with respect to that kind of engagement, but it's important that our students continue to do it. Right. With this year's entering freshman class, we're making available a $500 study away voucher so that a student who is interested in going and having a study away experience for credit, it has to be for credit, will get $500 towards his or her expenses. And that's a program that we anticipate being able to make available for students from now on as they enter the university. So taking advantage of that would be a really important thing for students to do.
Great. That would be extremely useful in our future.
It will.
Yeah. Okay, well, how do things look for Missouri State, generally speaking, away from the public affairs mission as a whole?
This was a year where we had record enrollment. Obviously, that always brings some challenges because we are bursting at the seams in some parts of the institution. If you consider the Springfield enrollment and the West Plains enrollment, we're going to be right at 23,000. And that was an increase of about 1,250 students over last year. We are nearing the point of being able to put out for bid the design and construction of the new University Rec Center. Students have been waiting for that for some time since they passed the referendum to pay for it a few years back. We hope to be able to break ground on the Rec Center in March and have it open for the fall 2011 semester. And that will be something that I think is terrific for students as well as for faculty and staff who will probably be given the opportunity to buy a membership in the Rec Center. Of course, students get it for free. The other challenge, obviously, is the budget and how to cope with the fact that, in all likelihood, the university will be receiving quite a bit less money in 2012 than we are now from the state, with a fairly strong potential that we'll be receiving less in 2011, just a year away from now. So we're beginning to do the planning for how to get best prepared to deal with that. It's not a thing you'd like to see, but I think with adequate planning, a thoughtful approach to this, we can manage it.
With that enrollment being so high, is that looking as a trend for future years?
It's a little hard to say. You've got two factors that compete a little bit here. When the economy isn't doing well, which of course it hasn't been for the past year or so, in general, that translates into increased enrollments at universities, particularly graduate enrollments. So if the economy continues to limp along and people have trouble finding jobs that they want, if unemployment continues to be at that 10% level, I would anticipate that would drive more people back to school. So that's a factor that's likely to produce some enrollment growth. On the other hand, the number of high school seniors in high schools in Missouri goes down by about 5% over the next several years. So you have a factor that leads a little bit in the other direction, which is there'll be a smaller pool of Missouri high school graduates going on to school over the next 5 or 6 years than there has been.
So the issue of a new resident hall interfering with our budget is not a challenge we face?
Well, I don't think the university will be in the business of building any new residence halls. The rec center is something that there is a dedicated student fee for because the students passed a referendum for it. I don't think the university in this next 5 years will be building its own residence hall or addition to the inventory that we have for student housing. It's possible that private developers may want to do that because I think there's clearly going to be a good market for it. But that would be a venture that they would take on. We would benefit from it, but wouldn't be something that would be on our books.
Okay. Well, do you have any specific goals for Missouri State as our president over the next 5 to 10 years long-term?
Right. We, of course, are finishing up a long-range plan, and a new one's going to start soon. We have a specific goal that's out there right now to raise $125 million in a comprehensive campaign, which is all private donations, and we are at about $98 million of that $125 million goal. So I definitely want us to achieve that, and really very confident that we will. We've set fundraising records each of the last 2 years. I also want the downtown development, which we're calling the Idea Commons, to move forward. That is a long-range capital plan. It's probably looking at 10 years to build that out in a way that makes maximum use of the properties that are there and that are thoughtful contributions not only to the university but to the local economy. So getting the Idea Commons further down the road than it is right now is an important goal for the institution as well.
Okay, great. Well, that's about all the time we have today. Thank you, Dr. Nietzel, for being here with us today. Ozarks News Journal will be right back.